Maybe you clicked here out of simple curiosity, or maybe, without even knowing, you were looking for a quiet place, somewhere the words take their time, and the silences are part of the story. I've stitched this one together carefully, threading memories, hurt, and small discoveries, hoping that somewhere in it, you might see a piece of yourself. If that happens, even for just a heartbeat, stay a little longer. Listen for as long as you can. And if you feel like leaving a little sign you were here, a few words in the comments, or passing this along to someone who might need it, it means more than you'd think. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the white columns and manicured lawn. I stood on the porch of my brand new 2-story home, hands on my hips, taking in every perfect detail. The freshly painted shutters, the new swing, the way the driveway curved just right. For the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. I deserved this. I had earned it. People like my sister, they had everything handed to them. A good education, a stable job with benefits, health insurance, weekends free to go hiking or brunching. Me? I'd always been scrambling, hopping between short-term gigs, dealing with car repairs I couldn't afford, and praying the rent wouldn't go up. So, yes, when an opportunity came along, I took it. It wasn't even my idea, not really. It was Jake's, a smooth-talking real estate agent I'd met at an open house. Over coffee one afternoon, he'd looked over my paperwork and sighed. "Rachel, your credits. Let's just say it's not in dream house territory. But your sister? She's squeaky clean, perfect score. You could borrow her profile just for the loan application. Technically, your family. You'd be living here anyway. No harm done if you keep up with the payments." I remember laughing it off at first, but that night, lying awake in my tiny apartment with peeling paint and a leaky faucet, the idea started to make sense. Why should I wait years, crawling my way out of debt, when I could step into the life I wanted now? And it wasn't like I planned to cheat anyone. I'd make every payment on time. She'd never even have to know. This house was my shot at finally being the one ahead, and I wasn't going to let it slip away. The first few weeks in the new house felt like stepping into someone else's life, the kind you only see in glossy real estate magazines. I filled the kitchen with stainless steel appliances I'd never owned before, bought a couch so big it barely fit through the door, and splurged on curtains that cost more than a month's rent at my old place. Neighbors waved as I carried shopping bags up the driveway. Some even stopped to welcome me, offering muffins or asking how long I'd been house hunting. I smiled, played the part, and let them assume I'd worked hard and saved for years to get here. On Facebook, I posted a photo of me standing in front of the sold sign. Within hours, the likes and comments poured in. Among them was my sister's. "Congratulations! How exciting!" I could almost hear her voice, cheerful, supportive, completely unaware. The rush I felt reading that was like standing on a podium after winning a race no one thought I could run. Still, there was one thing that kept tugging at me: the loan folder. It sat in my desk drawer, thick and official, with her name printed in bold on every page. Some nights I'd pull it out and flip through, my heart pounding at the sight of her signature, the one Jake had so neatly copied. When I told Mom and Dad about the arrangement, they didn't flinch. "It's nothing, honey," Mom said, waving a hand. "Your family. You'll pay it back, and she'll never even know." Dad nodded. "Your sister's strong. She's always been the one to stand on her own 2 feet. She doesn't need this house. You do." It became an unspoken pact between the 3 of us. The strong one didn't need to know. We'd protect the secret, keep life simple, and for a little while, I believed we actually could. It was a Tuesday morning. too early for visitors. I was halfway through my first coffee when a sharp knock echoed through the hallway. I opened the door, and there she was, my sister, holding a crisp, white envelope with the bank's logo printed in the corner. Her eyes were locked on mine, calm but cold, like she already knew. "Morning," I said, forcing my voice into a casual lilt. "You're early. Come in, I was just—" But she didn't move. Instead, she held the envelope out toward me. "I got this in the mail," she said. My stomach clenched. I glanced down and recognized the mortgage company's letterhead instantly. For a second, my mind scrambled for something, anything, that would make this look normal. I stepped aside, motioning her in. "It's not what you think." She crossed the threshold slowly, never breaking eye contact. I could feel the pulse in my throat. "Look," I started, my voice dropping to almost a whisper. "Don't make this a big deal. I'm paying for everything. You don't even need a house right now. You're renting? You're fine?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. She didn't raise her voice, didn't even interrupt. She just watched me, and that was somehow worse than shouting. When she finally turned toward the door, I took a step forward. "So, we're okay?" I asked, the question sounding weaker than I intended. She didn't answer, just walked out, pulling the door shut behind her with a quiet click. The silence that followed was heavier than any slam could have been. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed, Mom's name flashing on the screen. "Rachel," she said as soon as I picked up, her tone brisk, almost rehearsed. "Don't panic, we'll talk to her. Just stay calm and let us handle it." But as I hung up, a sick feeling settled in my chest. I wasn't sure if they could handle her this time. The following Sunday, Mom insisted we all have dinner together. "It'll be good to clear the air," she said over the phone, though her tone made it sound more like an order than a suggestion. I arrived early, the smell of roast chicken drifting through the kitchen. My sister was already there, seated at the far end of the table. She didn't look at me. We ate in strained silence until Dad finally set his fork down and leaned forward. "Listen," he began, glancing between us. "Your sister's been through a lot. She didn't mean any harm. It's just a loan in your name, that's all. Temporary. She'll handle the payments." Mom jumped in. "Exactly. Rachel's trying to get her life together. You've always been independent, sweetie. You don't need this house." I kept my eyes on my plate, letting them talk for me. The truth was, I didn't trust my voice. My hands were tucked under the table, fingers curled tight. I knew if this spiraled out of control, it wouldn't just be a family argument. It could be charges, court, headlines. Then Dad leaned back, like he'd just solved a puzzle. "Here's what we'll do. If she threatens to take legal action, we'll say there was a verbal agreement, that you gave permission. No paperwork, no trail. Just your word against hers. And we'll all back you up." I nodded automatically, though the plan sat like a stone in my stomach. Across the table, my sister finally looked up. She didn't argue, didn't even roll her eyes. She just gave me a faint, unreadable smile before taking another bite of dinner. That quiet scared me more than any confrontation could have. 4 quiet weeks passed. Too quiet. Then the phone calls began. Unknown numbers lighting up my screen. First 1 or 2 a week, then every other day. A polite voice asking if I could confirm some details regarding the mortgage. Another one introducing themselves as a lawyer, representing an interested party. Each time, my chest tightened. I'd hang up before they got far, convincing myself it was nothing. When I told Mom, she brushed it off. "They're just trying to scare you, honey. Ignore it. Block the numbers. It'll go away." But something in her voice told me she didn't fully believe that either. That's when the thought hit me like a punch. She's building a case. My sister, quiet, polite, unreadable at dinner, wasn't letting this slide. She was waiting, collecting. I drove to see Jake, the real estate agent who had started all this. We met in a coffee shop, his laptop already open. "I need you to clean up the paperwork," I said, leaning in. "Just make it so, if anyone checks, it looks like she signed for real." He gave a low whistle. "Rachel, if they dig into the signature, you're toast. I mean, they can get handwriting experts, match pen pressure, even check the timing of documents." I swallowed hard. "So, what do I do?" He shook his head. "Hope she doesn't go that far, because if she does, I can't save you." That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the clock ticking past midnight, then 1, then 2. My mind replayed every choice, every smug smile I'd worn in this house. For the first time since moving in, I wasn't thinking about how beautiful it was, only about how easily it could all disappear. By the second month of uneasy silence, I decided waiting was no longer an option. If my sister was preparing a case, I needed to strike first. I hired my own lawyer, a polished man in a dark navy suit who smiled like he'd already won. Over coffee in his office, I laid out the story I wanted him to believe. "She knew," I said firmly. "We agreed on it. She even said she was glad to help me out. But then she got jealous. The house, the attention. Now she's trying to back out and make me look bad." He raised an eyebrow but took notes. "We'll need someone to corroborate that." So I found someone, or rather I paid someone, to say they'd overheard my sister giving me permission. An old acquaintance, desperate enough for cash to play along. We rehearsed the lines until they could say them without blinking. Next, I worked the neighborhood. Casual conversations at the mailbox, friendly chats on the sidewalk. Each one sprinkled with my version of events. I painted myself as the misunderstood sister, the one who finally caught a break, only to have it threatened by petty jealousy. But one afternoon, as I was chatting with Mrs. Blake from 2 doors down, she tilted her head and said something that froze me in place. "You know, I always wondered why you covered your doorbell camera that day, right before those men came with the paperwork." My heart skipped. "What?" I asked, trying to laugh it off. "Oh, I saw you through my kitchen window," she said casually. "You taped something over it. I figured you just didn't want to be recorded." I forced a smile, but inside, panic bloomed. I'd thought that small precaution would keep things clean. No footage, no questions. I hadn't considered that someone else's camera might be watching the whole time. And if my sister had that detail, it could turn into the very evidence that would destroy me. The morning of the hearing, I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the lapels of my beige trench coat. The silk blouse, the polished heels, all carefully chosen to say, composed, respectable, trustworthy. On the inside, my stomach was in knots. My hands wouldn't stop trembling, so I kept them tucked into my pockets as I walked toward the courthouse. The room was colder than I expected. My lawyer sat beside me, flipping through a thin folder. Across the aisle, my sister's attorney, a sharp-eyed woman with a stack of binders, was already speaking quietly to her client. My sister didn't look at me. When the proceedings began, my lawyer tried to set the tone. "There was an understanding between the sisters," he told the judge. "This was a family arrangement, misinterpreted after the fact." But within minutes, the other side began dismantling that narrative piece by piece. They laid out signature comparisons, highlighting differences in slant and pressure between my handwriting and the one on the mortgage forms. Then came income records, proving I could never have qualified for the loan. Finally, my sister's work time cards, showing she was at her office the exact hour the documents were signed. My lawyer shifted in his seat, flipping pages faster, his voice losing its smooth edge. Then came the final blow. The opposing attorney called Mrs. Blake to the stand. She spoke calmly, describing how she'd seen me covering my own doorbell camera before meeting with the agent. And then signing the papers. And then they played it. Clear as day. Me, standing on my porch, taping over the camera before stepping aside to let Jake in. It was the kind of evidence that didn't need an explanation. The judge's ruling was short and sharp. Full legal ownership of the property is awarded to the plaintiff. I felt my face burn as the words sank in. My dream house, my house, now belonged to her. The courthouse steps were crowded when we came out. I didn't even make it halfway down before the words exploded from my mouth. "You destroyed my life!" I shouted, my voice cracking. Heads turned. Strangers, reporters, curious onlookers. My sister stopped, turned just enough to meet my eyes, and said in a voice so calm it cut deeper than any yell, "You stole my name." I just took back what was mine. The next days blurred into a haze of dread. I knew the eviction was coming, but I still clung to the hope that something, anything, would stall it. That hope died the morning a locksmith's van pulled up in front of my driveway, flanked by a police cruiser. I stepped outside in slippers, mascara smudged from another sleepless night. "Ma'am?" one of the officers said, his tone firm but not unkind. "You need to vacate the property. You're trespassing on someone else's home." I tried to argue, my words tumbling over each other, but the locksmith was already unpacking his tools. The metallic click of the lock being changed felt like the final nail sealing my fate. From across the street, curtains twitched. Neighbors I'd once bragged to about my big homeowner dreams now whispered to each other, eyes fixed on the spectacle of my fall. When Mom's car pulled up, I ran to it like a lifeline. She threw her arms around me sobbing, but between her tears, her voice was sharp with fury. "She's heartless," Mom spat. "A cold, ungrateful girl. After everything we've done for her." I didn't reply. I just sank into the passenger seat, staring out at the house that had been mine for such a brief, brilliant moment, now reduced to a symbol of everything I'd lost. A week after leaving the house, I overheard Mom on the phone with a friend. Her words stopped me cold. "She rented it out," Mom said, her voice low but sharp. "To some single mother? Barely charges her anything." The heat rushed to my face. So this was her victory lap? Handing my house over to some charity case just to rub it in? I convinced myself it wasn't about the rent. It was about humiliating me. Showing the whole neighborhood that I'd been replaced, not just evicted. The next afternoon, I drove back. The sight of my old driveway made my stomach twist. A small car was parked there, and toys were scattered on the porch. I marched up, ready to demand an explanation from whoever was inside. A young woman opened the door, a baby balanced on her hip. "You're living here now?" I asked, my tone sharper than I intended. "Do you even know whose house this is?" Before she could answer, a voice cut through the air from behind me. "Looking for something?" I turned. My sister was leaning casually against the fence, hands in her pockets, wearing that maddeningly calm smile I'd come to hate. It was like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. "This is my house!" I snapped. "I paid for it." Her smile didn't falter. "No," she said gently, almost pitying. "I paid the consequences for your fraud. Now it's someone else's safe place. Someone who deserves it more." The words hit harder than I expected, and for the first time since losing the house, I didn't have a comeback. In the weeks that followed, life unraveled piece by piece. With nowhere else to go, I ended up sleeping in the small guest room at Mom's house, a space crammed with boxes and the smell of mothballs. Every morning, I woke up staring at the floral wallpaper, wondering how quickly things had fallen apart. Friends stopped calling. The women I'd once sipped wine with in my new kitchen now avoided my messages. Even Jake, the agent who'd sold me the dream, stopped answering. His final text was short. Can't be involved. Sorry. Without the house, without the image I'd built, there was nothing left to hide behind. Nights were the worst. Lying in the dark, replaying the first moment I decided to borrow her name. Back then, it had felt harmless. Just a shortcut, a way to even the playing field. But now, the truth was inescapable. One lie was enough to burn everything down. I was still sitting with that thought when my phone buzzed late one evening. No caller ID, just a single image in the message. A mortgage application, my mother's full name printed neatly at the top. Beneath it, a line of text. Looks familiar, doesn't it? I stared at the screen, a cold weight settling in my stomach. Someone else had learned the trick, and this time, the target wasn't me. For the first time in months, I wasn't thinking about the house I'd lost. I was thinking about the storm about to hit someone else, and how the cycle I'd started might be impossible to stop.